Okay, what we're going to be looking at is the criteria that you're going to be marked on for Action Research TS4301. This is the PGCE rather than the CERT-ED approach, although the first three, I think it is, criteria are common to both. Okay, let's have a look where we are. If we look at criteria 2, 3, 4 and 5, just to move beyond these, they come to 60% of your total. 60% of the total, and they are generic. They're what you would be expected to do in all of your assignments. So you'll be marked on structure, organisation and presentation of the coursework. If you bear in mind last week that we did have a look at the outline document, not as rigid as the proposal document in a grid, but still very clear about what headings you have and the layout from the abstract right the way through to the conclusion. So if you follow that, you're going to be working well within that 20%. Your number 3 there is use of sources. 10%, obviously referencing and how you do it using Harvard, the UCBC guide is essential. But what you've got to include are sources both for the form of your study, what you're looking at in relation to your subject area, but also you want to be looking at action research and why you've chosen to do that, and some key supporting evidence using things like the G. McNiff book, Martin Denscombe, Judith Bell. So things that show that you've looked into what action research is and you've referenced correctly. 4 and 5, application of theory, principles and concepts. Obviously they're all going to be different for each of you, but depending on what the theoretical background is to your research, whether or not you've used a literature review with depth or if you've got a specific theory, but you're all going to be looking at learning approaches, as this is what it's about. So make sure you back that up with an application of this from the literature. And then finally, evidence of analytical, critical, independent thinking. This is practitioner-based research. You've led it from the start, you've made the choices, so that's going to be, I would say, quite straightforward to do. If you've done well in the action research, you'll be scoring well in that bottom section. Okay, let's now look at examination of the conceptual framework in which the research has been undertaken. 5%. What does that mean? Here you're going to describe where your research is taking place, your particular practice. What is the organisation in which you work? What is the structure? When we're talking about conceptual framework, we're looking at how that operates in general. If it's an FE program in vocational education, what are the things that drive that? What are the things that you're involved in that possibly somebody teaching in HE or somebody in a school system wouldn't be reliant on? What's your approach as a teacher? What's the framework? What's happening in that action research environment, in your environment, before and during the research? What have you had to consider? Okay, only 5%, but it's important to set the scene. B, the evaluation of the research approach. The methods used, including ethical frameworks. You can see that the ethical frameworks, and you'll remember, I know, that goes in the methodology section under its own subheading, but then that's your indicator. This is asking you for a 10% worth of good methodology section where you discuss why you're choosing action research, what action research is, why it is qualitative, why it's interpretive, why it's practitioner based, and it is not scientific, it is not positive, it is not quantitative. That's what this is asking you to do. Describe what action research is in terms of research in general, and then also justify why the data collection methods you've chosen are applicable to action research. Because it's qualitative, for instance, interviews, observations, documents as primary documents, they're all good choices, and they're all good choices because they match what you need to do in here in B. Highlighted a bit slow there, but you know where I was. Okay, criteria C, critical analysis of the data. and conclusions drawn with recommendations. You'll see here it's your biggest single section in the actual body of this part of the specific criteria before we get to the generic. It's 15%. What goes in there? Critical analysis of the data is the answers to your questions. You've got your 3 questions. We did the speed dating, you'll remember that. So you've got 3 questions and you've got data collection methods to match each of those. Okay, so what did you find out? What were the answers? You've done the data analysis in session 4. What you'll find out in session 4 is that you need to be clear about what the information is and how you took it from the interviews, how you took it from the observations, how you took it from questionnaires or any other form of inquiry that you used, any other form of data collection. And then you will then talk to us about what your conclusions are and any recommendations. Did it work well? Would you suggest it would going on in future? That's something you'll use and you would advocate other people using? Was it an okay method? Are there things that you would change? Are there any issues? Did it cost a fortune but it was really successful? All of that will go into your conclusion and recommendations, and for 15% it's a significant part of your overall score. Moving down on this section, we looked at it has its own subheading in the final report about personal or self-reflection. What did you get from this? What do you think the benefits of action research are? What do you think the limitations of action research are? Did you enjoy the process? Certain things that you will use are your journal, understandable, but also think about any forum posts that you made on the VLE. If you haven't made any yet, maybe you should put some on there, because it gives you the opportunity for other people to answer your questions and you to answer theirs. Have a think about what different approaches are going on. Okay, so that's 10%. Altogether, the whole part of that, A, B, C and D, come to only 40%. I think that's, it's a good thing for you to get your head around that. Don't be crushed by the amount of work you have to do. It's about the process as much as it is the content. It's about you showing that you can write a research report and you've got an understanding of what the whole thing's about. The results from your research aren't that significant. Do your best with them and hopefully they'll do you well in future as now, but it's about understanding what action research is and how to do it. Okay.